Yes. We slept. I left Lungi somewhere, maybe. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Let's settle. Good. Good morning to you who are here in person and to all the people who are following via the live stream. So we had a break for Easter, so it's time to start again, thinking and reflecting on our faith, on theology, and on the life of the church. And there's no better way to kind of resume our cycle of talks than really the exceptional guest we have today. And we are so grateful that he accepted to be with us today. Archbishop Thabo Makgoba is the Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town and the spiritual leader of the Anglican Church of South Africa. He was appointed in 2007 and he became the youngest person to hold this position. He must have been a child then. So known for his deep commitment to social justice, reconciliation, and spiritual leadership, Archbishop Makgoba has been a prominent voice in South Africa's post-apartheid era. He's also the author of a number of books and a public theologian recognized for his reflections on faith and leadership. And I'm sure we are going to be able to touch a little bit on all these topics we in the small time we have at our disposal. And yet when the possibility of Archbishop Makgoba coming here became a possibility, I thought, well, we should really focus especially on the exceptional, one of the most exceptional, among many aspects of his life, which has been the relationship with Nelson Mandela and his friendship with him. So we are going to focus especially, so the title we gave to the talk is Praying with Nelson Mandela. And yet at the same time, Archbishop is going to tell us a bit also about his ministry in South Africa and a bit, what it means to be part of the Anglican communion in such different places. So I invite you to give a warm welcome to Archbishop Makgoba. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. English is my 8th language, and I speak Sesotho, Sepedi, Sixhosa, Shangaan, Tshivenda, Sesotho, Setswana, Sixhosa, and then Afrikaans, and then English comes in. And so when I speak English, I tend to be scripted, because if I were to just speak without a script, I'll be all over trying to find the word called because, because in those various languages, because has got a various meaning. So I'm here with Lungi, my wife, and Rebecca has worked in our province, so she's chaperoning us around, so thank you so much, Rebecca. Today is a very special day. The 27th of this month is what we call in South Africa Freedom Day. It is after apartheid was defeated and a democratic dispensation started. And for the first time, both blacks and whites could vote freely. I was born without the franchise, without being able to vote, because I was a black person. So only a small minority white compatriots were allowed to vote, at least since 1961, and I was born in 1960. So the bulk of my time, I was a South African, but I felt like a visitor. And before Freedom Day came, after Mandela was released from prison. The comrades of Nelson Mandela prepared everything for him to come out of prison. He was in prison for 27 years. And they forgot to prepare where he was going to sleep for the first night as a free man. And then somebody said, we've got this wonderful program for Mandela, but we don't know where is he going to sleep. Then they rang my predecessor about one, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and said, we know that you Episcopalians or Anglicans usually have these wonderful houses. You may have a spare bedroom. Sounded very biblical for me, that there was no room for him in the inn. I'm not saying Mandela was Jesus, but... and then Desmond Tutu was in Johannesburg, and then he rang Mrs. Tutu, and Mrs. Tutu said, well, I doubt if you're telling nothing else but the truth, because, you know, we as clerics, sometimes I forget. I agree that we're going to have guests at home, and then they give me the numbers and the menu, and then on the day, I'll go sheepishly next to my wife and say, darling, I've forgotten to tell you that there are 10 guests arriving. And then she's lumped with 10 guests unprepared. So Mrs. Tutu thought Desmond was like that. But Mandela spent his first night as a free man at Bishop's Court, where we currently live. And when Desmond Tutu retired, my predecessor came, then I followed. And then because we're a family, and then this room was almost made into a museum inside our home. Like, this is Nelson Mandela's apartment. Now, my son is not one of the neatest human beings. So when we arrived, so the room was allocated to him. And then there was somebody who wanted to come and make a movie of where Nelson Mandela used to stay. I said to them, you will have to give us 3 months to clean it before you could get there. So that was the first encounter of Nelson Mandela with the church at that formal level. A number of people will say, but Nelson Mandela was a communist. What was his belief? What was his faith? Did he have any personal faith? And I always remind people that Nelson Mandela was a Methodist. At university, he stayed in a Methodist residence. When he married Winnie Mandela, they got married in a Methodist church. When he was incarcerated in prison, he received communion from an Anglican chaplain and a Methodist chaplain. He was very private about his faith, but he was indeed a Christian. And then how I came to journey with Nelson Mandela, I still feel very humbled by the ask. When we moved to Cape Town, his home, where he had retired to, was not far from Bishop's Court. And I received a call from his secretary to say, Nelson Mandela is not well. We would like you to come and accompany him to the end. That was very terrifying for me, accompany somebody to the end. I said, what does it mean? They said, he was a great man, he did so much, and because he was a great man and he did so much, he was now really struggling with the fact that all of us will be recalled to our Lord and Maker. So my task was not easy, to go to this great person when everyone that goes to him, you know, it's like they want something. So I went there because the family had asked me to go and ask for something. And that something was a difficult task. To say, Mandela, at some stage, you will leave this earth. What are your wishes? what do you want to see? And do you have any regrets? Do you have anything that you want to say? Do you have any confessions, anything? You are labeled in the American systems as a terrorist. You know, Mandela was, as a president in South Africa, he was not removed from a list of terrorists in the US. So they had to remove him in his third year as president. But fortunately, they did have an exception and allowed him as a terrorist president to come and visit the US. So that was a contradiction in terms. But on the first day I arrived, I was walking with my dear wife, and I said, no, I'm not sure, where do I start the assignment? And I had, as a student, being a member of the Release Mandela Committee, which was a committee that used to pray for him. We'll collect some money, we'll give people that are going to the Robben Island to go and give them tracksuits, just to express our love, collect signatures to say, Mandela, we love you, and you remain an inspiration to us as young theologians and as young South Africans. So I arrived on this day, and he was not in his best of moods. His dear wife had told him what the priest was coming to do, and he thought that he was going to put me in my place. And the first thing I said, hello, Mr. President. He said, well, call me Nelson. I said, oops, wrong start. And then I said, do you still remember when we were celebrating Trevor Huddleston Memorial's service at Johannesburg? I wanted somewhere to start, and my son was young, and I have this picture of you with him. So, oh, lovely, he must be an old man now. I said, so every entry was a deadlock in terms of the conversation. But finally, he said, well, my dear wife has told me that you are here to come and prepare me for the end. So please just tell St. Peter that I'm ready. I said, oops, okay. I said, you ready for what? He said, no, well, if I go and meet St. Peter, I will have the ANC constitution and a T-shirt, and I'll engage him in politics. Then he could see that this young Archbishop was really struggling to set up a conversation. But to cut a long story short, that was the beginning of a humbling, beautiful journey where I would go with my wife, sometimes alone, and I will pray with Nelson Mandela. And then I will pray, and after praying, he will say, Archbishop, that was a beautiful prayer. May I have it so that when you are gone, I can read it again? Then I'll say, no, I was praying from the heart. He says, oh, no, that's not a good thing. You'll be misquoted and be arrested. So I started now writing my prayers for him, and I will pray. He will take the prayer when I come the following week. He will have analyzed the prayer written and say, you said Thomas is the encourager. What do you mean? Then I'll try and explain. He said, but we've been talking about me. I mean, when will I get my time to encourage you too? And then one day when we thought Nelson was indeed going, he didn't wake up that morning, and there was a long queue. There were people that used to go to him, a long queue of people who wanted advice from him. And on this particular morning, we were not going to see him. They called, and we arrived, and he woke up at around 12 noon, and they were giving him breakfast. And then he said, oh, Archbishop, I'm glad you're here, because I think my PA, and it was very interesting, his PA was an Afrikaans lady, and for South Africa at that time. South Africa, when I grew up, it was illegal for me to fall in love with a girl who was white, or lungi to fall in love with somebody who was white, because she was black. And we used to have what we call Mixed Immorality Act as a law. But now here is Mandela out of prison. The first PA he employs is a white Afrikaner girl. Just tops the tables ups and down. So then when I arrive on that day, he says, Archbishop, Zelda's a PA. Zeldina is forcing me to eat these flies. I said, now what are flies? So it was mostly with with raisins. So he didn't like that. He didn't like the raisins at all. So no, these flies. I said, no. Madiba, these are raisins. He said, no, these are flies. Then I took a spoon. Then I ate. I said, I ate. And he said, yeah, no, definitely, I'm not going to eat this muesli. I said, why? He says, well, you've put your mouth in it. But he was starting to lose appetite and wanting to find every excuse not to eat. But on that particular day, I remember that because there was an Afrikaans person who was a farmer. By mistake, the Afrikaans person had reversed his tractor in a farm and knocked and killed a child, his nephew, and he couldn't be consoled. He went to counseling, he went everywhere, and his heart was very sore. And Zelda said, maybe if Madiba, that is Nelson Mandela, spoke to you, you may come to terms with the fact that you have to forgive yourself. You have to learn to forgive yourself. This is a tragic event, but you have to, God has forgiven you. We're not saying forgiveness is cheap, but God has forgiven you. So you need to learn to forgive yourself. So I arrived that day, and there's a queue of people coming to see Nelson Mandela. And this gentleman is the next one. So he relates the story, then I pray. And then I go to Nelson and I say, the queue is long and you're not looking well. Are you not feeling tired? Oh, he was mad at me. He was, Archbishop, what type of an archbishop are you? People make you feel tired. No, people energize me. When I see all these people, I feel energized. Then he smiles, says, well, of course, you haven't spent 27 years in jail. So I need them. I want to absorb their energy and share my energy. And then this gentleman came, and when he left, I could see a smile in him. I said, what did Nelson Mandela say to you? Because we've prayed, you thought God doesn't exist, and something like that. He said, he looked at me with those piercing eyes and said, you are a child of God. We err. It was not your intention to kill your nephew, but your nephew is in the loving arms of his Lord and Maker. All of us there, when he repeated the story, were really glassy-eyed. And I said, as a priest, I've never been able to touch somebody's heart for that transformation to happen. And here is Nelson Mandela, who was branded a communist because he wanted freedom and justice for South Africans. He wanted South Africans to live together, is doing one of the best pastoral work as he was nearing his end on earth. And I can relate a number of prayers that I've said. But what then happened is his family, after he died, I will come back to the funeral and think, after he died, said to me, you were praying with Nelson and you were talking with Nelson. Can you please share those prayers. Some of them were scribbles. I said, "Now, here are the prayers." They said, "No. We ask you to share about Mandela's faith journey and publish it." I said, "Oh, no. I can't. I'm a priest. We had our relationship of prayer and of talking about his fears and anxieties, his joys. I can't, as they say, kiss and tell." No, I have to respect that pastoral confidence. But then Mama Graça, his wife, some of you may have met his third wife, Mama Graça. I said, "Archbishop, you remove what you don't want to put there, but it will be wonderful," she talks like that, "it will be wonderful for people to know that Madiba did pray." So that was the genesis of my book, Faith and Courage, Praying with Nelson Mandela. It's a story that in a very humble way traces his Methodist roots. And I trace that when he moved from the rural areas to go and work in Johannesburg, the first one-room house that he rented was in an Anglican rectory. And then he didn't tell the rector that he was involved in political issues. And then the rector discovered a copy of the Freedom Charter. And so he was shown the door. And he lost his first accommodation in Johannesburg. And sometimes he used to say, "You see, you Anglicans are not good people." So that was his first encounter. And that particular parish where he went to, years later, that's where I was baptized. So things were starting to gel. And I wrote that book, and I juxtaposed the prayers, my own journey from the rural Limpopo, and his journey from the Eastern Cape. And my journey, I know each time I talk about this, it's like I'm pushing people back, but that's not the intention. The intention is to share how, out of a very difficult South African experience, I felt forgiveness, and I felt like if I don't forgive, I'm just going to collapse and die, either from anger or from emotional pain or from too much hatred. So, because in 1895, when our land in a place called Makgoba Kloof, you must visit there. I promise I'm not on the salary of the tourism minister. But it's a beautiful place, a fertile place. Suppose most of the avocados that you eat here come from there. So in 1895, during the wars of land disposition, the family was kicked out of Makgoba Kloof, and my great-grandfather, King Makgoba, was beheaded, and then to date we haven't found the skull, but the skull is traced somewhere in Germany. So the book and Praying with Nelson Mandela enabled me to share that story and to say how does God's forgiveness when we've buried the body and we can't find the skull look like. And then as the book was being read somewhere in Germany, a great-grandson of the gentleman that authorized the beheading came forward and said, "Thabo, I don't want the next generations to live under this cloud and pain." And at the moment, we are journeying together. We are reflecting. We hope to share our stories, and maybe that could be the story of reconciliation, as in the book Faith and Courage, Praying with Nelson Mandela, tries in small ways to say there is a God there, please don't be unforgiving to yourself when things have gone horribly wrong, but please, equally, as Desmond Tutu would have said, if somebody takes my bicycle, and we are 7-year-olds, and I cry, he goes home, and then he comes back and says to me, I'm sorry, Thabo, don't cry, don't cry. Desmond Tutu used to say, but wait. There's the bicycle factor. You took the bicycle. When you console me, you don't come with the bicycle. You say, I must be okay. He says, you need to sit down for true forgiveness and reconciliation to happen. We need to name some of those very challenging things that may have hurt. You have hurt one another in your Christian journey, because when you do that, you feel so freed. You feel so loved, so forgiven, and you can also forgive yourself. Let me take a pause there, because I'm a storyteller. Once I talk, I won't end. So the aim is also, as you said, to get a Q&A. Thank you so much. Thank you
so much. This is a wonderful testimony. So we can have some questions. I wanted to ask you, so we did a journey on forgiveness over Lent.
Yes.
And I read a number of things about what you have just described. Yes. So the reconciliation process promoted especially by Desmond Tutu. Yes. Today in South Africa, what is the situation now? Do you think that reconciliation really has taken root in the society, or is still something that still the divisions or needs more healing, and whether the process still is working?
Okay. So the process was very important, because had we not gone through that, we could have probably South Africa would have ended in a bloodbath. It was very important to say, we all matter, as Desmond used to say, we all matter, black and white. We are loved by God, and we are all the rainbow nation of God. So that was very important, because then we could start working with each other. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission came, and people came and opened up. Some didn't open up. So the process is going to take a long time, because it was 400 years of colonialism and 40 full years of legislated segregation. So the democratic government has been in power for 30 years, and some of the laws that they are trying to put in place in order to reverse the segregation, some of them are unintentionally the laws that apartheid used. And now when you sit this side of the fence, will say, but black economic empowerment, doesn't that exclude the other? But this is what the Afrikaners did when the British sidelined them. They said, we're going to form institutions that will give special preferences to the Afrikaners so that they could rise economically. So there are some of those rules and laws, and because, again, in terms of spatial apartheid, blacks used to stay this side of the railway line, and whites this side of the railway line, next to leafy suburbs and beautiful area. So the majority black, even if they are trying, they are still in what I call the ghettos, because geographically they have been separated, and now the prices of houses are impossible for them to cross over. And then Bantu education also said black children were educated to be servants, and it was actually legislated. And now in democratic South Africa, there are more white children that are more educated and skilled than black kids. So it's going to be a lot of intentionality based on love, based on the common good that we're building a country together that will actually move us forward in terms of reconciliation. What has not helped at the moment is the invitation by the administration here in the US, where Afrikaners were invited to come and take up citizenship in the US. And that really nearly knocked South Africa out of joint. Right. Because we're saying we are in it together. Where I come from, if the Afrikaners were to leave, I'm not sure if we'll be able to produce those avocados because they are skilled, they've got the know-how, and the most important thing is to share the skills and transfer the knowledge with the indigenous people until we all don't talk about white Afrikaner, black South African, but we are all South African. So it's a long journey. But as a cleric, having, as I say, in faith and courage, having tested almost death for going to school in 1976 where there were riots, I am much more hopeful that we will get there. We will get there. We just need to love each other, but we need to be quite brutally honest with each other in terms of where we're coming from and where we want to go as a country. And lastly on that one, the current president has said he's going to inaugurate national dialogues in South Africa. I really warm to that because the national dialogue aims to bring all South Africans, regardless of race or religion, to the table to say, what type of South Africa do you want? Because since after apartheid, we never said. Some politicians said they crafted one of the most beautiful constitution, and we've been run by the constitution. But now the question is, all, regardless of your race, social standing, what is your hope and wish for South Africa? And I hope that will make reconciliation much more tangible.
Thank you.
Yes.
As an archbishop in the church, can you say something about the challenges of the Anglican Communion now, as it seeks a new Archbishop of Canterbury, and deals with GAFCON and the various groups within the church?
Yeah. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was elected as a young person, as you said, to be an archbishop. So I've been privileged to really journey in the chambers of our communion. And our communion, like every family, from time to time when we fight, which is a great pity, we go to the media and the radio and the TV instead of just saying, you know what, I don't agree with you. And what is the best way forward? We've lost that beauty of saying we are one family. And I chaired the last Lambeth conference as the design group chairperson, and I had the opportunity on behalf of Archbishop Justin and the communion to travel around to try and almost like a salesman to say to people, please do come to Lambeth conference. And I learned a lot about our communion, that some of the issues that I thought were light, for other people, they were church dividing matters, almost like first order things in terms of our faith. But when I go to, is it Kenya? No, was it Kenya? No, Uganda. Was it Uganda? No, Nigeria. Yeah, when we went to Nigeria, the Archbishop of Nigeria was the first one to say, we're not going to pay our dues to the Anglican communion, but we're not leaving the communion, but we're not going to participate in the issues of the communion. Then you say, but if you don't participate, you've technically left. But then he said to some clerics, you go, but if you go, it's not me. So it was that whole posturing, and the pretext was a question of human sexuality, but the real issues were really issues of power. Who yields power? If President Museveni in Uganda wants to push a particular policy in Uganda, he knows that if he got the Archbishop of the Anglican Church in Uganda to speak, the masses will support that. And that he may say, thank you very much, Archbishop, here's a diocesan car. And then the Archbishop will be full of candies in his mouth the next time he's supposed to criticize Museveni. So there were issues like that. But what didn't help was when there were people in the US and people in England also holding a particular view and bringing the fights to the continent and saying, we will support this one because he holds this particular view, and another group will say, we'll support this one because he holds a different view. Then that really tore the fabric of our communion. And that tear is still very, very deep. But the new generation of leaders are no longer hell-bent on some of those old things. They're saying, how do we reconcile? How do we get people who have said yes to Jesus to move to the next level? And an example, Manal, I'm not sure, an example is our son for matric dance brought a girlfriend home that they were going to go to the matric dance together. And then his other friend came and we said, but Africa, where's your girl? He said, no, I do have a partner to go to matric dance. And we said, no, who's the partner? Africa says, Andrew. Now the Anglican school, boys' school, where they went, flipped, because for them, Africa, even at matric level, for matric dance, Africa needed to bring a girl. And Africa didn't bring a girl. He brought a friend who was a boy. So the kids now and the young clerics now will really transform our communion, and the emphasis will be on how do we spread the love of Jesus, how do we reconcile, how do we make this world a much more loving, forgiving, and better place than we have found it. I don't know, I'm positive, yeah.
Is there another question?
Yes.
I appreciate your idea that it's not a good idea for the U.S. to open and invite citizens from South Africa to come and become citizens, because it would kind of drain the talent. But what is most helpful for South Africa to further develop economically that in the U.S. or elsewhere could provide or could help out?
Thank you very much. Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of Treasury back at home, but invest in some of our countries, in the skills that we need and we lack. Please don't do away with some of those scholarships that you used to give to young, bright, white and black people to come and study in the US. Please, PEPFAR, which was started by President Bush, and the houses agreed to support it. It saved many an HIV-positive children to suppress their viral load. And those kids are doing very well. You close UNAIDS, you close PEPFAR, you sentencing those kids to drug-resistant TB because if they are on ARVs, as an example, and they've been regular because South African government can subsidize, but South African government is very soon, like the rest of the other parts, Lesotho, which falls under my province, they did not have sufficient ARVs. Now you stop them for a couple of weeks, you're creating a difficult situation. It's like if I'm taking my pressure medication, and then I decided, no, because I'm in the US, I'm going to stay here for 6 weeks, I won't take my pressure medication. When I go there, I wonder if that pressure medication will still have the same effect as when I stop. So those kids need those ARVs. Please invest in health. If PEPFAR is gone for good, and our prayer is it's temporarily, but the time from when the PEPFAR money has been stopped to now, we're running out of time. We don't want to go back to when we don't have that medication. And now kids are starting to die of something that over the years we have managed together to deal with. So it's one of the ways. But the other one is, please, if you shut Harvard, as an example, I know, or you don't support it, I know of some of the bright students that sometimes are selected back at home and they are sent there on a scholarship. So that brings doom, and only those that have got money in South Africa will be able to send their kids here. And at the moment, those that have got money are still racially skewed. Now, that will continue to make South Africa unequal and based on race. I hope, yeah.
Thank you. I'm mindful of the fact that Archbishop Makgoba has to preach now at the 11th, so we have to have a look at this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your words, your encouragement, and stories. I mean, the stories are the best way of really getting to share something of that experience you had with Nelson Mandela. So it's really a privilege and a pleasure. And so I invite all of you, I mean, I know that most of you will stay to be at the Eucharist now because Archbishop is going to preach. But thank you. Thank you all. Thanks so much. I'll come with you.
South Africa to experience it for yourself.
We love to. We want to.
Just wait for it.
So I'd better steal you straight away because otherwise the people are going to want to talk with you. And yes, I'll take the microphone from you. And I'll show you probably the restroom on our way down.
You don't want to have too many mics going on.